Okay, with lesson 4, we're going to walk through the same kind of a case study. We'll just do a purchase this time. And again, I'm going to try to continue just to flow through. So I would click Create a New Client Plan. And this time I would click a purchase. You'll notice some things adjust here. We've got a contract price of $250,000. And I've got an Add Details button. Now this isn't required, but I really recommend it because what it does, it helps you to think through the situation, the strategy that's going on. Is a client selling a house currently? And let's say they are. They're selling a house for $200,000. What are they paying in realtor commission? They have a 6% agreement. That lets me know that they've got $188,000 coming from the sale of that property. Do you have other money that you've got available? And they say, yes, we've got about $20,000 that we've saved up for this transaction. So what do I know now? I know they have $188,000 coming from the sale of their home plus $20,000 that they've saved. They have $208,000 to work with. And that $208,000 will have to be used to possibly pay off the existing mortgage plus for the down payment. So this is designed to be very intuitive. So you're buying a house for $250,000. What would you like to put down? And they say we'd like to put down 10%. And that tells me that's $25,000. So they're going to need to borrow $225,000. So there's a lot that's being done here already because I know exactly what they've got coming from the sale, exactly what they've got saved, and exactly what they're going to need to borrow. And I just click Save. Now, everything else is just as we saw before. So I'm going to call this, let's call this video for sample purchase. And notice how these descriptions play out. They are showing me above. If I want to come back and find something quickly, I can do it right up there. I can come in here and click on a referral partner, and I'll say that's for my sample realtor. And now notice I've got 2 referrals from that partner here in the month of March. And I go into my client information. These 4 boxes here are kind of your minimums. So I've got sample buyer purchase. That's the name of my client, and they have $85,000 in income, and they're in a 25% tax bracket, and their email is samplebuyer@gmail.com. These are all extra fields over here that I can put in if I feel like I want to have a little bit of extra information. I may already have that somewhere else, so I can leave them blank. If I'm using this as sort of my CRM for just tracking some basic stuff here for this new prospect, I'll go ahead and put an easy street, and that's Durham, North Carolina, 2751006. Their contact number is here if I want to put that in. I want to have their mobile in here, and date of birth, credit score, I'll leave that blank. Follow-up notes, client is looking at houses this weekend. So this is an important thing for me to get done for them. Now I'll go into my liabilities. What's the liability they have today? Let's just say we'll keep this one again very simple. They have a current mortgage, and I click on details, and the property value of that property is $200,000. That's what they're selling it for. So we've already put that in there for you. You can adjust it if you want to. It's a primary residence. They have a 30-year fixed. It's with a bank. They originally borrowed $165,000 when they purchased that property, and they purchased that in 3/1/2008, and it's at 6.5, and their current balance on that property we'll just say is $158,000. So I can see their payment, and this is really critical because it's a purchase, so I want to make sure I put in property taxes, insurance, and things because it'll help me to compare what they're doing now with what they're going to be doing. So I'll put in just a 1% here, say that's tax deductible, say their homeowner's insurance is $35 a month, and they have no mortgage insurance, homeowners associations, or otherwise. So I click Save. So what did I do? I just basically set up their current liability. Their objective is to buy a new home for $250,000. Very curious if they can keep the payment close to their current payment with the lower rates. Would also consider ARMs as they expect to be in this house for 7 to 10 years maximum. Okay, so I've asked them my questions. What's the most important thing to accomplish? They want to keep their payment close to what they're paying today, etc. So that's it. I can go into more detailed interview questions if I want to, but again, I'm going to keep this simple for now. I go to the Borrow tab. And again, with all this narration, this still has only taken me a couple of minutes. And I've got this current liabilities. I can see what they owe. They got 319 months to go. I can see their balances, their payments. They're going to be paying that off because it's a purchase, so we're defaulting that, yeah, you want to pay that off. And I'm just going to take the recommendation. I'm going to compare a 7-year ARM today at 3. And notice how it said, hey, they're buying a house for $250. Let's do an 80% first and a 25% second. That'll avoid mortgage insurance. The software has already looked at optimizing what might make the most sense for that client. So maybe that's not an option for you. Maybe you don't have that ability. So you can go through and just simply take that out. All right, and now I'm going to take this loan amount here to $225, right? And I'm good with that, like the rate, like everything at 90%. That's what I want. I'm going to come in here and say property taxes are going to be that same, about a 1%. Going to be about 60. We'll just say about $60 a month for the homeowners. And I'm going to have some MI. So I'm going to put in here 0.47 from my table, and that's tax deductible, and that'll be there till 78% loan to value. And I click Save. So now I've got my old payment. I can already start to see it. I'm looking pretty close here. And now here with a 7-year ARM, 30-year fixed, let's just say I can't split that either, so I'll go ahead and just come and override the logic of the software, the best case, take that to 90%. This is going to be 4. And I'll come in here, and again, for speed, I can just click copy from 7-year ARM. It brings all that down, and it's going to go through and make that adjustment for me, and I can click Save. Now I've got my 7-year ARM, my 30-year fixed in here with my payments. And literally, I am just about done. It's got, if I want to do FHA, finance closing costs and stuff, I'm not doing that. $250, $225, I need $25,000. That's what I need as my down payment. I'm going to also need some closing costs, prepaids. Maybe there's going to be another $2,000 I want to put in here for prepaids. So it's looking at my closing costs now around $4,500. I'm paying off $158. See, so it's pulling all that. It's figuring all this out for you. You got to pay off this existing mortgage. So this is a real intuitive way to explain it to the client. You're going to need $25,000. That's red. That's a down payment plus $4,500. You're going to also need to pay off that existing debt of $158. You're going to need $25 for your down payment, and you're going to need $4,500 here coming for the closing costs. So with this one little category here, I can say here's what you're going to need: $158, $25 for down payment, $4,500 for closing costs. But you've got $188 net coming from the sale of your property, and then you've also got $20,000 that you say is cash available. So look, you've got $20,500 still left over. So you can do a really nice job of narrating for that client. Here's what we're doing. You know, you're going to pay this off. You're going to need a down payment. You're going to need closing costs. But you got $188 coming, plus you got $20 available. Look what we got. We still got $20,000 left over. So you can definitely do this. I could even go through and do one more scenario, just show you how fast this is. I come over here and click Alternative 3. I click Duplicate 30-year fixed, which is going to bring all that information down. And I do an 80% loan to value with 4%. And I come in here and say, okay, I don't need MI anymore. So I click Save there, right? Let me make sure I got my taxes right. Yeah, 1% and 60. So that's all the same. So now what I've done is, you'll notice here, I didn't have to change another thing. I got to have $4,500 now to do this Alternative 3. And I'll call this 30. I'm just doing this just the way I would do it. 30-year fixed, 80%. I'll call this 30-year fixed at 90% now. So these little headers and descriptions make it easy. So and I'm going to, since to be consistent, I'll do 7-year ARM, 90%. So now what I've got 7-year ARM at 90%. 30-year fixed at 90%, 30-year fixed at 80%. So I can compare these right there side by side. What's the cash flow difference? The 7-year ARM means they're going to be coming out of pocket only $50 a month. The 30-year fixed, $167. But if they go ahead and put the extra cash down, their payment's going to actually improve by $22 a month. And that's the cool thing about this. I can say, what's more important to you right now? Would you rather have $20,000 at closing and pay an extra $167 a month, or have to come out of pocket with an extra $4,500 at closing, but know that your cash flow is going to be positive $22 a month? And the client says, you know, that's really interesting, but I'd probably be more comfortable having the cash at closing and making a little higher payment. Okay, great. Well, let's see how this all plays out. So I come down below. I can always hit the refresh here just to make sure I've got my highest payment in here for the options. So for all 4 of these options, the highest payment per month would be the 30-year fixed at 90%, $1,412. So I'm going to use that to compare for all 4 scenarios. So I'm paying the same payment over time. And they said 7 to 10 years. So I'll start with 7 years. in 7 years, and you're currently, if you kept the house you have today and you spent $118,623, because that's an option, this is going to compare that to these new scenarios. Now, if I say I don't want to do that, I just want to compare these three options side by side. I don't want to compare it against what they're doing today. I just shrink that up and go compare the 7-year ARM to the 30 at 90 and the 30 at 80. And I can see you're going to spend 118, 118, or 118. The house value at 2% growth is going to go up to 287. Your mortgage liabilities are going to be 188, 193, and 172 because you've got a much larger down payment here. I can see any extra cash going into a savings account because I've got the savings. Let's click repay. So any extra cash or cash flow goes towards repaying that debt. I usually default to that, by the way. I use savings if I know a client is looking at saving and building wealth. I always default to repaying for most consumers because it's easier for them to sort of see the months to debt free number here. So what's the most important number? Okay, the baseline here is they're going to spend out of pocket, their cost to live in this home over the next 7 years is about a negative 45.13. That's the impact on their wealth. If they go with a 30 at 90%, it's going to cost them about $16,000, and a 30-year at 80% about $4,874. So actually the 7-year ARM at 90% or the 30-year fixed at 80% are almost the same from a wealth impact over 7 years. So what might be a tiebreaker? I go out to 10 years, 10,000. Over 10 years, the 30-year fixed at 80% is the best deal for them financially. It's going to have the quickest payoff time, and it's going to cost them the least out of pocket. Now you can see by playing with these numbers, if they got a 3% appreciation, okay, that's going to have a positive impact overall on their net wealth. So this is our baseline wealth impact here. This is our alternative, and I can see which of these is going to be the best. In this case, over 10 years, this is the best scenario for that client, that 7-year ARM. Okay, if I go out over here, and in this scenario, and again, I can change any variable and see what would be, if any, impact on the scenario. So I really, I would say either the 30-year fixed at 80% or the 7-year ARM at 90% is probably the most appropriate. This one I like the best because it has the biggest cash flow enhancement. You got positive $20,000 at closing. And from a cash flow standpoint, you've got the second lowest overall payment. So I like the 7-year ARM. Even over 10 years, it's still a pretty attractive solution for them over time. Now, again, I just compare the three side by side. I like to compare current liabilities always as my baseline. So I can say, if you stay in this house over the next 10 years, the house you have today, your wealth impact is going to be negative 23,549. With a 7-year ARM, you're actually better off financially by $12,649 compared to what you're doing today. You might say, well, where does that come from? Well, look, at a 2% appreciation rate, their current house is only worth $200,000. It's going to go up to $244. Over 10 years, their new house at $250 should go up to $305 because we're just comparing apples to apples. So you got more appreciation. You got a little higher tax savings in there, potentially, if you want to look at the tax adjustments. But this allows me to compare each of these things side by side and say the 7-year ARM and the 30-year fixed at 80% would both give you more wealth than staying in the current home over a 10-year period. So can you justify doing this? Answer the three questions. Do you have the cash to do it? You certainly do for the first two. You may not for the third. So let's take that away. Now I can just go to cash flow, $1,295 versus $1,412. This gives you the best payment. Wealth impact over this time period. This gives you the best wealth impact. I'm proposing the 7-year ARM. And from there, I go right over to my present page if I'm not doing this live, and I click check all, and I kind of build my report, and I go into my PDF and do my report for my client. So again, I went into a lot of detail on this just to show you what you can do and how to think about it as you're going through a plan and presentation for the client on why they should work with you and why they should buy a house or not. In our next scenario, we'll take a rent versus own and do the same comparison just to, again, get you familiar with the flow and the process. Hope this helps. Have a great day.